Hey everyone, welcome to TSP Weekly. This is your tech startup podcast for Thursday, July 3rd, 2014. Today we are once again recording at the Center for Entrepreneurship here at the Doon campus of Conestoga College, and we are very grateful for them to let us use their space.
Very grateful.
My name, as always, is Darren Conley. I'm a local tech entrepreneur here in Kitchener-Waterloo. And with me once again is my co-host, fellow tech entrepreneur, Stephen Campbell. How are you today, Stephen?
I'm doing well, Darren. Thank you very much. I was just double geeking, but now I'm just chillaxing.
What was the first one?
Double geeking.
Double geeking.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to ask.
You don't know what double geeking is?
I don't.
When a computer user is using two computers at the same time.
Okay.
So you can
I double geek almost every day at work.
You double geek all the time?
Yeah, I double work sometimes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon. Yeah.
It sounds like a bad euphemism, but I know you're famous for those. That's the only reason
Bad
why I raised
yes.
that. Well, let's introduce our guests here. We have an unprecedented two guests today, not our typical just one. And beyond that, they are actually a married couple, an amazing married couple. Cecillie and James and Cecillie. Do you guys care which order I introduce you in?
Any order is fine.
Yes.
We're all one now. So.
Okay, perfect. James and Cecillie Nelson.
Yes.
Yes.
I just wrote their last name down right before we started recording. I was afraid maybe it was Nielsen and I got it wrong. No, James and Cecillie Nelson. They have a company called We the Internet and are doing some very cool work with changing the way that voting, changing the way we engage in the voting process. Is that safe to say?
We're working to improve the democratic process using technology, so there's a lot of ways you can put it. All of them are correct.
Okay, perfect. I can't get it wrong no matter how I describe it.
It's democracy. You have your own opinion. It can be as right or as wrong as...
Excellent. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what they're working on a little bit later. In the meantime, we wanted to dive in a little bit into some of our tech news and get James and Cecillie's unique perspectives on some of these ideas. The first one we wanted to talk about, something that just came out this last week, Google Cardboard. I don't know, is that the official name for it, Google Cardboard?
I think so.
That sounds like a name they would use.
It looks like it.
That's what everyone's been calling it. And
or the Oculus Thrift.
Oculus Thrift, I think that's kind of the nickname people have given it, right?
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't seen what this thing is, it's kind of a chunk of cardboard with some lenses embedded into one piece, and you kind of fold it together origami style into this apparatus that allows you to slide in your mobile phone and then use your mobile phone as the screen for viewing 3D video. And that's right. So you hold the cardboard box with the lenses over where your eyes are, and you guys, I'm sure, can all imagine me. I'm doing actions here. It works wonderful in audio only format, right? You hold it up to your face, and then you can watch 3D video or 3D video games or whatever it might be with this very low cost device. Have you guys seen this? Or
I haven't actually seen it in person, but I've seen people use it on videos and stuff. Mm-hmm. I think one of the more interesting things to look at panoramic photos.
Right.
We just recently went to the mountains, and James took some beautiful photos, and I can only see it so well on my desktop.
Right.
Yeah,
but in something like
photosphere,
that,
so it's a 3D view of on top of a mountain, and so when you're looking at it on the phone, it's just a plain long picture. But when you have an immersive 3D visual helmet you can stick on your face, then you actually get the experience of being there. So
sure,
it would be really cool if anybody anywhere, say if you're selling a house, you could just take your camera phone and just take a 3D picture, and then people could put on this Oculus Thrift and literally walk around this house. And,
sure.
A lot of practical aspects to it.
I think it would be cool. I think creating the actual content for it might be a little more involved, right? Because I don't know if you can just take any picture and suddenly turn it into a 3D thing. Like you might have to have, at the very least, if it's going to be 3D, you need a camera,
Perspective camera.
or a camera phone. Yeah, that's going to have a left and right eye input, right?
Right.
So you capture that dual perspective. But did you guys take like special format pictures? when
No,
were
you
traveling?
just any Android phone
you
you
do
can
it?
use a photosphere and you just basically spin it around
create the
and
panorama.
you get the full 3D view from a single point.
Right,
You don't
right.
get to move around from that point, but if you were to basically they do it all in software. So if they can do the 3D photosphere in software, they could probably do a good approximation of the Oculus Thrift view from using those same things.
Sure.
Because I think it was done by a single engineer at Google. Just one guy in his spare time said, "Hey, I can take this chunk of cardboard and make my own Oculus Rift. I don't need $2 billion. I need a bit of time and some cardboard." So
yeah, and a few lenses, I guess. That's the special thing you gotta put in there, right? But yeah, I love the fact that it's so cheap and easy, because even the Oculus Rift, I thought, $350, that's not bad to buy an Oculus Rift developer kit. But, the cost for cardboard and a couple lenses embedded in there, I don't know,
And a cell phone you
$10
already
bucks
have.
or something. Yeah, and the cell phone you already have. It'll be interesting. Like, now, do you guys think this will go anywhere? Is this just kind of a gimmicky thing we're going to hear about now and then we'll never hear about it ever again? Or do you think people will actually use this? Like,
I don't see a lot of
think?
practical aspects. I don't see people investing a pile of money into the Oculus Thrift simply because it looks so cheap. I think it's
Right.
more of like something that people just want to play with. You buy it, you play with it for a little while, and you toss it. It's like every app you download on the App Store, you play it for a week or two, you're done with it, you never look at it again.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more of like a hot topic sort of issue for now. Of like, see, you can make tech accessible, and here's how one guy did it with cardboard even.
right.
It's kind of like it explains Moore's Law almost, where it's like, hey, look, an immersive 3D virtual reality helmet for $10, right?
Yeah, it's getting cheaper and cheaper.
Exactly.
For me, it almost is a branding. You could brand it for anything. So you could get a Century 21 Oculus Rift, and you could show off your real estate. So I think there are some commercial aspects of it that you could brand it. Any company could then very cheaply, marketing companies or Vegas or whatever it is. But I still think real estate could have some. The panoramic picture now is very linear, so you don't get to look up and down at all when you do that on my iPhone anyway. So I don't know, there might be something there. I think it'd be interesting to research it. And like you said, Darren, it's much more accessible when the entry point is cheaper.
Yeah,
So-
and I like the idea of like if I could get, just in the mail, they could mail me like one of these, unfold it and assemble yourself kind of immersive things.
Hello
and
Kitty
then,
branded.
and then there's a website printed on the side of it, right, where I go and download the content or the app for the content, and suddenly I can be viewing an immersive commercial
Yeah.
or whatever the content
Maybe
is
a
for a
sports
company,
game,
right?
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
a hockey game, the big Stanley Cup game. People want to relive it in on the
Ooh.
ice,
Right.
be
Sure.
able to have enough cameras set up. They have enough money already. They could easily afford to do some 3D casting. So
Sure.
Sure.
Or-
Or
Yeah.
walk through Bill Gates' house, or
Yeah.
there could
Or
be
even
some cool
think
things.
about like tourist places like Niagara Falls where you want to have that view for a long time. You could sell them there and have like little. I mean, who knows what's going to be printed on the cardboard?
That's
Right.
true,
Be any-
eh?
Yeah.
Tourist places.
It would probably
Okay,
be-
so any tourist people out there, if you're adopting this
20%.
idea, we want 20% equity in your company. This is the standard rule for the podcast. Longtime listeners will know this. Sorry, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, like, the practical aspects for a business or a particular, like in a corporate sense, make a lot more sense than like a end user. It's not going to be so
Right.
much the end consumer buying this and using it. It's going to be like more specialized for a particular industry. And because they're so cheap, it's not like you have to invest $400 in this thing that's only going to be used by a few people.
Sure.
You spend $20 on the thing and people get to use it, and you get this, go to a trade show and people get to put it on.
Yeah.
That's enough of a attraction right there that you're going to make your $20 back in the first hour. So.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. And it's interesting that you said like the cheap construction of it makes it disposable, right? Like it's almost like if we build the exact same device out of more expensive materials, well, suddenly this becomes something we would hold on to and use in the long term.
You'd let your
But-
kids play with it.
Yeah, that's right. But because it's cheaper materials, it becomes almost disposable, and then that affects the long-term utility of it, eh? Something I hadn't really thought of before, but interesting point. Okay, well, let's move on here, guys. Another, I think, maybe gimmicky, short-lived idea, potentially, but something that's a little more intriguing, I think, is this idea of a phone where you can send cents And when I say scents, I mean smells.
Not dollars and cents.
No, not dollars and cents, not common sense.
It's not square.
That's right. But you can send smells essentially to other people who are using the same phone. You can now email a smell or text message a smell is what it comes down to. The phone, now, the official name for this phone is... what was it, Steve? I'm trying to find in the article. The oPhone.
Oh.
The olfactory phone.
I guess.
Yeah.
Which once again,
I think we all know the first
innuendo.
text message people are going to send to each other is going to be the inevitable fart joke.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
Right.
And you know that 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to get to sleep, you're going to get that text message. It's going to wake you up. You're going to click the button, and there it's going to be.
Very popular in middle school.
Yes.
See,
High
there
school
you go.
students are going to love this one.
And it's a Harvard professor who actually invented this, David Edwards, created this, stinky phone. I don't know. I'm sure there's all kinds of things we could call this thing, right? But, expects that this is going to add a whole new dimension of interactivity, I guess, to, communications online.
I could see how, some businesses could take advantage of it. I have a brief history in neuromarketing and, olfactory studies, so to speak.
Okay.
And I found out a lot of businesses that are in malls and places circulate scents outside their stores. So if you smell like a really good cinnamon bun coming down the lane, it's not the actual buns cooking, even though they're making them.
Right.
It's the scent that they've got that they're circulating out of their stores. So maybe it'll be an add-on to some kind of app.
That's
if you could
interesting.
order coffee for someone that, I don't know.
Maybe for businesses that have they're set up by a traffic light, maybe when you're within range of that particular business, then they could
send you a whiff.
Yeah, you could opt in to be like, smell what's cooking, and
Hot dog squirted into your car window.
yeah, for people who aren't already addicted to
hot dog
fast
cart.
food, let's get the French fry smell going on when you're driving home, and then
Oh, no.
Or it'd be interesting to see an ad for KFC pop up in your phone, and you're smelling KFC coming out of it, right? Or popcorn, and it's an ad to go see a movie at the movie theater.
I think the long-term implications of this are really interesting, but I think in the short term, you're not actually going to be able to send what you're actually smelling. It's going to be kind of like having an air freshener that someone else can control.
Right.
Basically, you smell something, and then you have to select the smells that are most similar to what you're smelling, and there's 32 of them.
Right.
And it enables you to make different combinations up to, 300,000 different smells.
That's right.
Based on these 32 different inputs, and it focuses mainly on food and coffee to begin with.
Yeah.
Right.
And they talk about they could expand from there.
Because what else, really, I know we're talking about fart jokes and so on and so forth, but when you think of things you really want to smell, I think the food and coffee factor is
About it.
the biggest thing, right? If you're... What else?
Perfume?
Maybe perfume and flowers. Maybe
Wine.
the scent of freshly cut grass, can evoke some childhood memories or something. But
It would help perfumes, I think, because, when you go to a store and a perfume's on sale, you can't really smell it.
Right.
But if you could get a sample of it on
Get
your
a QR
phone.
code and just scan it and then smell it through your phone. It seems a lot more for advertising and consumer products, but
You have to buy a specialized add-on to your phone, or you have to
it's a whole
buy
new
a specialized
phone. It's a whole
phone.
phone,
Okay.
Yeah, it's a completely different phone. So already, if anyone's going to own this, they have some interest in smell, and if if for the people who aren't interested in it, you have to get them interested somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can send them a sample of this functionality until they already have the hardware. They could try it in the store.
Maybe when
I
they
guess.
have those new modular phones that they're building, I think Google's getting on board with that now. Maybe you'd be able to just plug the module into your phone, try it out, and if you like it, then $29.99 and have yourself a smell phone.
The smell module. Now I'm assuming, and once again, I should have reviewed the article a little more closely, that there's some something that needs to be replaced, some module that needs to be regularly replaced once, like with your inkjet printer, right?
There are little cartridges that they put in it that the air wafts over and picks up the scent. So you can do a little different combinations of the different ones. But they called them little air blisters or packets that had little liquid in them, I guess.
So there's a new kind of consumable product aspect to this where you're going to have to buy refills if you want to keep smelling what you want to smell, right?
Yeah.
Which I guess from a business side is kind of good for people who are making them if it catches on. But
yeah, and it was a big pain for me. Like I had a printer at one point that had CMYK or something, and I ran out of yellow, and it wouldn't let me print any black until I bought a new yellow cartridge. So if you're sending a lot of coffee smells and you run out of the coffee or the brown sugar smell, or it might really down your phone until you get all the smells back. Or I don't know, will they do a 12 smell pack? It's really gonna with 32 smells. That's a lot of cartridges.
To me, the 8 crayons or the 64.
Yeah.
That's right.
As far as advertising, it looks like it's taking a cost, that advertisers would normally eat of sending out samples and stuff like that, and it looks like it's putting it on the consumer more now with something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? So instead of them paying to send out a perfume sample in the mail, suddenly I have to refill my smell cartridge so that they can send it to me on the phone. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, tricky.
Wily.
Tricky, yes. Related to this, and maybe someone's working on this, and if you are, once again, 20%, I would love to have a phone that allows me to record smells. So if I am in some location, I'm thinking of times where I've gone camping or I've been at some event or maybe in a restaurant or eating a particular dish of food that it just smells amazing, and I want to capture and record that smell and then play it back, quote unquote, play it back at a later time to relive that experience. I think that would be amazing. I think with this phone you have to kind of construct each smell from scratch, or if there's, I guess they've been pre-created by somebody somewhere. But if there was a way to analyze smells and then have it put them together, I think it would be awesome.
Once you get the Star Trek replicator that can print off Earl Grey tea for you, I think then you'd be able to, pull out your tricorder phone and scan the restaurant and, save it and replay it.
Or different notes and colognes and things like that, so you can learn what you prefer.
Yeah. And in the future, I see all this definitely being possible. There's nothing with the laws of physics saying it can't be done. It's just how practical is it today? I think this is kind of a professor's toy, right? So,
Sure.
So it's like anything else, in 20 years, it'll be like the next, it's like texting. Of course you can get a smell, but now it's, a big joke. So
I don't know. You guys don't have the new Starbucks phone? It's awesome.
With coffee scent built in.
Coffee, yeah.
The Starbucks phone 5S.
Yes. Straw included?
No, extra. You got to pay for that.
Oh, you guys. All right. Well, now that we've covered smelly phones and cardboard immersive reality hardware, we want to take advantage of the fact that we have a young couple on the podcast here. Incidentally, Cecillie, you have the unique distinction of being the very first female guest to appear on the podcast.
Oh, I'm honored.
It took us 6 episodes to get a female guest, but you're the first. And we do have several others lined up in future weeks for those who are concerned that this might just be a one-time thing. But
she's a woman in tech pioneer, as always.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Awesome. So we, I had recently on the radio heard one of the DJs just talking about these, new rules of dating in the internet and the kind of online connected age. And, those who have been longtime listeners of this podcast might not know it from listening to Stephen and I, but both of us are not super young anymore. I wouldn't know. I don't know if I'd call us old, but I'm approaching 40, and Steven's just over that milestone.
Yeah, I clubbed my wife and drug her out of the cave by her hair.
And she didn't have a mobile phone.
That's right. Yeah, she couldn't call anyone to help.
That's right.
She couldn't call a friend.
I actually did meet my wife online, but it was kind of pre-mobile phone revolution. Pre-Facebook, pre-Tinder, pre all of the stuff that young people in the dating world are experiencing these days.
Profile pics and avatars and
that's
online profiles.
So maybe I should ask you guys first. I know you've been married for a little while. How long have you been together?
We were married September 1st, 2013. So we're approaching our 1 year now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We met in February of 2013. So We actually met online on
Yeah.
Facebook over a song that I shared. And a random friend just shared the song, and she showed up, and we started talking. And within a month, I was flying to North Carolina to visit.
Okay, wait. We're skipping over some.
Yeah, a
some
lot of things had to
Bryan
happen
Adams is
between
really
the
powerful.
thing.
Okay, and just to finish introducing the topic, like really, we're thinking. I want to hear your story absolutely of how you guys got together, but really like this idea of what are the new norms, right? Like when do you update your relationship status on Facebook to say that you're a couple? How many text messages are expected to be sent and received? Do you say I love you in person first, or does that happen through some electronic means? Like how do the steps go? But yes, before we get into all that stuff, so you guys were living in different parts of the world.
Yes, I was living in the U.S., in North Carolina, actually, in Asheville.
And I was in Calgary, Alberta, on the other end of the continent, so about 3,000 kilometers away.
Wow. And how many miles is that, Cecily?
Oh, let me do some quick math in my head.
About 2,000.
Maybe 2,000, yeah. And you say you posted a song that you had wrote?
We had a mutual friend.
Okay.
His name's Ryan, and I stood next to him at just a rally. Asheville's known for having a lot of activism, and every once in a while I would go out and like take photos. And I stood next to this really interesting guy, and he was pretty friendly, really smart. And so I added him on Facebook. And I had this rule back then where I didn't talk to anyone I didn't actually physically know. So I was already kind of pushing it, which I had just met this person. I didn't know them a whole lot. They weren't like a very close friend, but he seemed really, really nice. So
sure.
I added him. And
meanwhile, I was, adding thousands of people I've never met and collecting all the randoms from all over the world. And Ryan is actually one of my bigger followers who would always give me lots of reshares. And I was always like, yeah, I love this guy. I had no idea who he is, but he always reshares my stuff. So,
cool.
When he posted the song, I think it was a dubstep song with lyrics from Carl Sagan.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was a little intellectual for dubstep. But
who would have thought that Carl Sagan and dubstep would have a hand in drawing the two of you together?
I know. How appropriate.
I would have never bet money on that.
That's the universe, baby.
It is now in the 21st century. This is how it works.
So we started talking, and
Now, this is on Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just casually about music and, science and a couple things like that. And
it was near Valentine's Day, and neither of us had a date. So I, kind of suggested, hey, why don't we do a video chat, right?
And I wanted to make sure that he was actually who he said he was in his profile photo. You always have that, hesitancy of like, are they really like 70? And like,
yes.
what?
Could he
who
really
are
be
they?
this good looking?
Yeah. So we had a Google Hangout and wound up talking until like 7 a.m. the next morning. And I thought, this is an awesome person.
That almost like that never happens. Like, to actually go out on a limb and video chat with somebody, because that is not something that people just do. You don't just ask anybody off the street, hey, do you want to video chat with me? You kind of have to have a good rapport with them, and it helps a lot
how
if you know
awkward
who
would that
they
be
are.
in a coffee shop? Like, hey.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the Google Hangout part. It wasn't Skype or Facebook. It was
It's Google Hangouts.
Yeah, I was on a cell phone, and he was on his laptop.
Yeah, because I basically live on the laptop. I work online. So for me, Google Hangouts, that's how I join my morning meetings every day. So that's how I first saw my wife, now wife. It's
And the tech worked through that whole hours of.
It facilitated everything perfectly. I will give good props to Google. Most people have some issues with the old Hangouts, but
Now, can I just highlight the fact that we have now in the mix of this coming together, we have a laptop or a desktop that you're on. We have a mobile phone.
Yeah.
We have Facebook. We have Google Hangouts. We have Carl Sagan and the world of dubstep.
Yes.
activism.
That's right.
He was Occupy Wall Street activist. So
and brought together by a common connection that really wasn't a strong connection for either of you, right?
No.
You knew him online and you bumped into him one day, right?
Yeah.
And so all this kind of coincidental and merging of technologies was all part of this mix, this serendipitous collision. If we will, right?
So I was lucky enough that you were able to fly and visit me. And I was on vacation from one of my jobs.
Now, hold on. Was it just on the basis of this one conversation that you thought, I'm going to fly out and meet this girl?
We kind of made a bit of a joke about it, where it was, you don't actually suggest that, the first week that you met somebody, hey, I'm going to fly to see you. That's kind of creepy, right? But we had a really great rapport. We talked the night before. We were going to wait until Valentine's Day, but we wound up talking the night before. And then the day of as well. So 2 big, long conversations.
So we had like a video chat once a week, but then off and on, like every once in a while, like I used to call him my quote unquote pocket boyfriend, and not in the negative sense, but in the sense that I would get like a notification from my phone in my back pocket, and it would be him, sometimes
lived in her back pocket, not on, the seat next to her.
Saying, here's an article, or here's this cool thing I found. And a lot of our relationship was just that. It wasn't necessarily based off personal narrative. It was a lot of sharing ideas.
That actually works a lot better than like a lot of traditional dating, because quite often when you're dating, you can go and do a thing, and it's about that thing you're doing. And even if you don't really connect to that person, maybe the thing is really fun, maybe the meal is really good, but when you're just talking to somebody, you have nothing but them to focus on. It has to be either it works or it doesn't. Either they're interesting or they're not.
And it sounds like you're sharing a lot of content with one another as well, right?
Yeah.
Or yes? Am I making an assumption there? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of actual scientific articles, a lot of music, a lot of common interests.
Yeah, we still do that.
Yeah.
And we live together now. So.
This isn't just Ken I has cheeseburger photos.
Yeah, no.
And that's interesting, though, that it's more of a, like, people would often argue when it comes to relationships of any type, but especially in romantic relationships, that you lose something by connecting online as opposed to meeting in real life. And from what it sounds like here, I mean, this sounds almost more like it's a more intellectual level of connection, or at least initially or in the early stages of engaging the minds, rather than just kind of like checking each other out at a bar and saying,
you start with the mind, but there is that aspect that is missing, where if you're not actually ever physically with them, you want to be with them. Like,
it's not that part is not important.
Right.
It's just
there's less pressure because
it goes the other way. You start with the intellectual and then you go to the physical instead of starting with the physical, which honestly can work for almost anybody.
Right.
And then you find out, 4 months later that the intellectual parts of it don't work at all for you, and now you're stuck in this mess. We didn't have that problem. We started knowing that
that you connected well. Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of figure it out by isolating the variables, I guess, with that.
And I guess I love that my wife is so scientific that's how she likes to isolate the variables.
I'm sitting here
you can
thinking
isolate my variables anytime.
You guys are so romantic.
You should see her wedding vows, actually. She had the most scientific wedding vows I've ever seen in my entire life.
They were very galactic.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you write your own wedding vows? For
yeah.
Interesting.
I was kind of doing the poetry scene as well for a while, so mine was a little more artistic, which is weird because I'm the programmer, right?
Right.
But,
mine talked about energy particles and light, bouncing off of light.
But
wow.
I guess getting back to the tech rules of modern dating, we don't have it quite the same as other people where, when they meet physically and then you have to be like, how many days has it been since I texted them? When do I ask them out on the next date?
Sure.
Because I have seen a lot of people deal with that, and there seems to be this underlying thing they call the game, and I hate the game because it's based on denying people attention, and you're not supposed to text for this long. You're not supposed to call, and you're not supposed to be interested.
Sure.
And I think that's
it's loaded with expectation, I think, because it's saying as soon as I send this person a message, they have to reply within the hour or they're not interested. It's supposed to all mean stuff, and with that kind of pressure on the meaning of every action you take is way too much.
I think there are two kinds of people who are using tech and dating. They're the ones who are playing the game, and they both have to subscribe to the same sort of rules where if they do it well, they get rewarded with more attention. Right. If they don't do it well, they fail and they're made to feel bad. But then there are people who don't like that and just use it to directly connect. And those people get the most value out of it because now it's not this fake construct they're dealing with. It's the actual, how do I use technology to connect to this person I'm interested in? And they're interested in me too. And we can both be interested together. This is great.
Sure. Now, people would say then that in the old pre kind of tech world of the dating scene, once again, you meet someone in person more often than not. There's all that that face-to-face pressure of kind of not sounding awkward and not stuttering over your words and everything else.
You have to have a response immediately all the time.
That's right. And so when we're dealing with sending text messages or messaging on Facebook or through Google or whatever, we can edit our interactions a little bit more before they get sent. We can spell check and we
give a chance to think before you speak, which is vitally important to not stick your foot in your mouth.
That's right. Although I somehow end up doing it very often, not, on Facebook, even with that potential to self-correct. But this idea now that it's not so in your face, that there's I'm trying to think of a good term for it, but it's not as intrusive, let's say, into someone's kind of personal space and expectations. I can send a text message and it doesn't interrupt their day the way that an actual phone call would. It doesn't, have the same level of pressure to perform as a face-to-face kind of interaction might have.
What kind of performance are you doing when you meet people?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm over dramatizing this entire process here, but I guess.
But it's true that I worked as a social worker when we dated, and so my whole day, even though the hours I kept in the office were 9 to 5, I would be out doing things related to work, sometimes till 7 or 8 at night, or catching up on paperwork. And I
programmed 16 hours a day, so...
Yeah, so he knew that whenever I checked my messages, that was time specifically set aside to pay attention to him versus catching me at 5 o'clock when I'm trying to catch my supervisor or, run out and run this errand.
It's a lot lower maintenance where you don't have to demand the time of them, so it's all very opt-in. It's your choice, and people they know it's your choice. That they got back to me within less than a day. Great, they actually bothered. Whereas if you send someone a phone call and you miss it, if you miss it by 5 minutes or you miss it by a day, it's no big deal. But if you miss a text message by 2 or 3 days, that says I don't care.
Right.
So
right. Well, I guess the point I was trying to make was is the modern having all these tools, these online tools available to us in the dating world, is it making it easier and less, is there less pressure in our ability to connect with people, or are there more expectations? Are there more rules piled on now? Are there kind of more layers to navigate through with all these different tools at our disposal and the level of expectations attached to them?
I think if you're someone who really truly knows who you are, it can, regardless of the work it takes to find different people, you can find someone who's more compatible than you would if you just walked in cold turkey into a coffee shop, right?
Right.
How do you find someone who's interested in the same, music and politics or
tiny little niche interest of things?
Right. So, but I think Darren has a good point that there is a lot more factors now that are in play where you have to be aware of, on Instagram it's like this, on Facebook it's like that, and there's all these different little cultural cues.
Do I subscribe to their Twitter feed, or does that seem too desperate? Do
you like everything they do, or do you only like 50%? It's kind of uncharted waters where people have to kind of navigate it for themselves. And I've seen people go both ways, where they either get too eager or not eager enough, and really it just comes to the person you're involved with. If that person really you got good connection with them, good spark, then be as interested as you want and don't hold back. But if you're just dating and you're just playing the game, then you're just going to be playing the game, and you're not really going to get anywhere in your relationship. You might have some fun, but
sure.
I would say not necessarily in dating, but with friends, it has helped me broaden my friend base with people who I would want to carry on a conversation with in real life about deeper issues, because you can't really go up to somebody in a coffee store and say, hey, do you want to talk about the neuroscience of this? Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, that person's going to be like, I just want to drink my coffee. Can you not?
It's difficult to broach all of these, deeper subjects when you're having a synchronous conversation. You have to kind of lead into it, and you have to have a cue that goes into it. Whereas online, you can be like, hey, look, I saw this thing. And it's a little more ADD, but it gives you more options.
It's like you said, it's opt-in. People can opt into a conversation as often or as deeply as they want to. So you know who's really invested in topics.
Yeah.
Okay, one other question in this area, then we'll leave it behind. But this whole idea of kind of researching a potential relationship partner, online. So these days, like, I could have a Twitter account, an Instagram account, a Facebook profile, a LinkedIn profile. Maybe I'm on Google Plus if I'm a Google employee or something. I don't know. But we have a much stronger online presence. So if I do meet someone at a random event or something, or have to be standing beside them, there are options now where I can go online and find out quite a lot about this person's history, interests, occupation.
But you don't want to let them know that you already know these things, because then it looks like you're stalking them.
Well, that's right.
Yes, it does.
But here's the question then. Like, doesn't everybody do that to a certain extent anyway? We're just not allowed to tell people that we do it. But we all do it.
I think so. I think that's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. It's available. It's out there, but you don't want... It's kind of like the game, where you don't want to seem so interested that you read every single Facebook post they made in the last 8 years.
Right.
Well, it's like a more in-depth first impression, right? When someone walks into the room, like, we naturally make judgments based upon how they keep their... hair or clothes or, presentation. That's basically what we're doing with social media now.
But you can go back and actually see what's the person interested in.
You're
in
control of what you put out there.
Not just how nice are their shoes, but like what topics are they interested in?
Yeah, and if they're interested in you back, it's completely okay to go back and throw a comment on something they posted a little while ago to actually say, yeah, I actually read your content. You're so interesting. Like, once you kind of broke the ice and you actually have a dialogue with that person, it's okay then to go back and say, yeah, I'm looking at all your pictures. It's almost a compliment saying, you're so interesting that I'm actually scrolling to the bottom of your news feed for the last 8 years of your life. Like, maybe not immediately.
And then you can get an idea about somebody. If it's all selfies, do you really want to be involved with someone who wants to take that many pictures of themselves versus do they have some pictures out there with them with friends and family and doing things?
Yeah, not just drunken party pictures, but actually like real life stuff. Yeah, for sure. The one thing I'll throw in that I haven't stalked any, potential mates. I've been married for 7 years now, but I do often forget that on LinkedIn, if you look at someone's profile on LinkedIn, that person can see that you've looked at it, right? So there have been people I've met around town, just in the tech scene here. Well, I'll go and check them out to kind of see like what they're involved in and stuff. Then I'm like, oh crap, do I want them thinking that I'm like checking up on them or whatever?
Nexopia was like that too, where you could actually you could see who had viewed your profile. And
I get so self-conscious about that. I really do. I know that it's totally fine to look at people's profiles. That's what they're there for. But if somebody thinks that I'm really looking at their profile, I start to get clammed up around them. Like, I only looked for 5 seconds. I just wanted to make sure you're still in the area.
Right. Yeah. It's funny all the different nuances and things involved in this new world. And I'm assuming it's only going to get more complicated moving forward. But hopefully there will be some more kind of level expectations as we get more and more comfortable with these different outlets and social media.
The information we share is supposed to be for our benefit anyway. So the whole idea is that, you're sharing to show people who you are, and in return, you get to meet people who like who you really are. So.
Yeah. Well, it's like personal branding, right? You don't want things just floating out there. You kind of want to be in control of what you have out there that's your own.
Yeah, people want to look a certain way, and maybe that certain way isn't exactly who they are in day-to-day life, but that's who they really want to be in day-to-day life. So some people would say, oh, that's not really you, you're faking it, but other people would say, that's who you really are if you could be anyone you wanted to be.
That's who you're aspiring to be. You're kind of setting the bar and you're going to reach it.
That's where you're going. And I actually did that in my own life. My own personal development was based on who do I actually want to be, not who I am. I was okay, but I could be better. So I just acted like I was better, and all of a sudden one day I'm like, hey, I'm a poet. Sweet. I wasn't a very good poet. Don't look it up. Don't research me. Married.
You're gonna see all these people who have visited your LinkedIn profile now after listening to this podcast. This is one thing that, not in the dating world, but in general, I occasionally think to myself, have I branded myself well online? Do I have, is my Twitter and my Facebook and my LinkedIn all kind of talking to one another the way they're supposed to? Because I did have for a while my Twitter account, whatever I posted to that automatically posted to my Facebook account. And then suddenly I'm like, wait a second, some of the stuff that I'm sending to my Twitter, I don't necessarily want my in-laws reading who are on my Facebook. And then I had to figure out how to, unlink them and, Anyway, it gets complicated.
I find some content is better for different places. Like on Facebook, I shared one article that got picked up by Anonymous and had 25,000 views. Shared it on G+, I got 2 likes and a comment.
Right.
It depends what your audience is. So.
Yes. Yeah, I think different crowds want different things. I find that the Twitter crowd really likes to depend upon the headline and the tagline, whereas Facebook, at least the folks that are on mine, really like to go in and read the article and look up alternatives and get into a deeper conversation.
And G Plus is kind of the snobby science programmer types like me who like to just share articles about Linux.
Right. Maybe that's why Google Plus hasn't caught on as much with the rest of us. We just don't know enough about Linux to contribute to the conversation. Well, thank you guys for being so open about your personal life. We're going to transition here a little bit more into your professional undertakings.
Sure.
So just as a bit of background, I bumped into James and Cecillie at an event here in town held at Communitech, and Communitech is kind of the big tech hub. They do all kinds of amazing events in Kitchener-Waterloo for the tech scene. We had one called Startup Weekend where people get together, they try to build a product over 2.5 days, and hopefully at the end of it they have something good and they get judged on it. And I think I just sat down beside you guys on the first night and started chatting, and
that's how the best connections happen. Totally random and serendipitous. But yes, we actually didn't know anything about Startup Weekend entering in, but I kind of bought us tickets and was like, let's go check it out. Let's work on other people's projects or maybe bring your idea to the table. And when we showed up and
we saw the format, how it worked.
Yeah, the whole thing was going to be done in a weekend. I was like, oh my God, can we do this? This is really intense.
Yeah, because we had 2 ideas. We each brought an idea, and Cecilie's idea, I think, was a lot more technical. There was no way we could have had a demo over the weekend.
The community theme really helped me to kind of center in and go ahead and team up with you right off the bat.
Because the theme of the weekend was community, right? Building things to enhance and create community, local community. And so for those of you who want to know kind of how that went, so I had an idea and put together a team and ran with it. You guys had an idea, and when I'm pointing to James and Cecillie when I say this, that they had a team of their own, and you guys ran with that for the weekend. So we didn't actually talk to each other, I think, very much after that initial meeting. We were both busy
not
in
a
our
lot.
teams.
I remember you being very interesting, though, and so that's why we...
You did send cookies around. Yours was a kindness app.
Oh, yes, because we had the random app of kindness.
That's
We were
right.
trying to do kind things for people over the weekend.
Yeah, and then meanwhile we were doing something called the Internet Party, which is basically the idea of doing digital democracy, where people can vote online, people can have conversations about politics online, where people can engage directly with their candidates. So we, over the course of a weekend, built an entire demo. We got a team together, put together a business plan, and Communitech was so great. They got us in touch with local politicians, people who are running for mayor in, I believe, Kitchener.
Wow.
And we got our first customer out of it. Well,
Yes, we
quote-unquote customer.
Yes.
Got a mayor?
Well, not quite, but
Voter Support Committee.
the leader of the Voter Support Committee who's doing the debates in town halls for the municipal election this October. So we're actually doing their online face for their platform, which basically is going to be all of the candidates for the municipal election all have their questions and their answers to all the hot topics in the local election. And we're going to use this as kind of a place to actually get real live test customers to try out the product, give us feedback, and help us build a product that we can then scale to every municipality in North America and first the English-speaking world, and eventually, hopefully, the rest of the world.
Okay, so just to get kind of a higher level view of this whole thing. So did this the Internet Party. Did this start at Startup Weekend?
Well, I thought of it like a decade ago and been planning and plotting the whole time, but
Right.
And you kind of told me right off the bat. This is one of those things where when we were sharing content and ideas, he was like, I have an idea for this and I really want to do this in live. And
Right.
so planted the seed that I needed to push that and make sure it happened.
Yeah,
Sure.
but we didn't actually have any work done on it whatsoever before that day. So
Okay.
we literally built the demo out in 2 days and had a real-time voting app that was
Yep.
running on stage
Yes.
for a presentation.
Now I remember this part because during your presentation, and for those of you who don't know how this works, you build the product over the weekend. At the last day, at the end of the last day, which was Sunday evening, I think we had 10 different teams that were presenting, and each team presents. Maybe it was 9. Anyway,
I think it's like 12.
oh, was it?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There was a bunch. I didn't get much sleep that weekend, so it's a little
No.
bit hazy. But each team presents. They do a pitch, 5 minutes. I
Yes, and
think.
it's timed.
And it's
I
timed.
hated that.
Yeah,
It was so
and-
scary.
And there's some Q&A, and so we get to see what's been created over the course of that weekend. And I think you guys were the only ones that actually had a fully functional demo
Yeah, it was-
that night of your application.
I was typing in like back massages for the judges, and people were upvoting it.
Yeah.
Or rather,
That's right.
I was upvoting it a lot.
Yeah, and it looked like, and this is only just my impression of seeing it up on the screen that night, but kind of like a message board, but a little more chat enabled somehow. Like there was the appearing of messages in real time as people were entering them, but it was
Yeah.
a web application.
Yeah, the demo was just the web application, and all it was just people sending in ideas and talking about them. But the actual platform itself that we're working on has a lot more depth to it, where people can
Have email
conversations, they can
notifications.
have voting up and down on threaded comments. We've had a lot of discussion about the trolls. That's a big problem. Whenever anyone talks politics, someone wants to troll you. Someone gets their feelings hurt and wants to argue. And you need a way for those people to express themselves without necessarily
Wrecking the conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where we're having a threaded model where people can kind of, if you want to have that argument, you can have that argument over to the side, and everyone else who's having a serious conversation can still have it. And
it gets moderated by somebody.
the community.
Okay.
So basically, we don't want anyone censoring, so there's no deleting allowed. You can't just delete someone you don't like. But
Right.
if everyone downvotes your comment, it'll be like YouTube where it hides the comments.
I see.
And then basically everyone who's participating in the democratic process, whether it be a voter or a representative, is going to be able to have their public platform so that they can say, this is what I stand for, this is what I believe in, this is where I want to spend the tax money, this is what I want to do with the world. And everybody who's in government or involved in government can use this to connect to people. And everyone who actually cares what the government is doing can go and talk to their representative instead of just, posting on Facebook and complaining about it. You
Right.
can actually talk to the person who can fix it.
Now,
Yeah.
if I'm on the Internet Party, how do I differentiate between the person who wrote this is just an average citizen with an opinion, or this is a politician or somebody running for office stating kind of their position? Is it different colors or different?
They're different
Is it only the
badges.
politicians who can post a topic, or
Yeah.
can anybody create a topic and discuss it? Or how does
There are
that work?
different badges for level of, I guess, authenticity. And
Okay.
then because the Internet Party is going to be more of a public service and something that we put out there through the non-for-profit, there are going to be different ways that you can use different forms of ID to actually
Validate
identify
who
yourself.
you are.
Yeah, validate who you are.
Okay.
And we're also, because we do need to eat as well, we're looking at a subscription model where anybody who wants to use the platform can use it for free. Everyone can have their vote. Everyone has a voice. That's for free. But if you want to run your political campaign through it, you pay, $10 a month or something like that. And then
Sure.
you're going to get the ability to have an enhanced profile where you can put together like your party platform and, actually instead of just having a news feed, which is kind of my pet peeve with current social networks, where it's a big feed that just drops off the bottom of the list and it's gone the next day.
Yeah.
We want to be able to focus on the quality of your content, not the quantity, but how good of an idea you have by building your collection of good ideas. So
Right.
every person is going to have their collection of good ideas they want to do. And when you go to their profile, you're going to see what are they campaigning for. So when you campaign for something, you're not campaigning for the the blue party or the green party. You're going to campaign for ideas you believe in.
So I think it's more content centric when thinking about users and candidates in a way. Versus just like somebody's profile and cute picture.
Yeah,
and
more like Reddit than Facebook, where it brings people together.
Yeah, it's not
based
Facebook
on,
plus causes at all.
No, because it's been done. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to make something that's focusing people based on the issues that they care about.
Sure. Now, what would be the value proposition then over just subscribing to the Twitter feed for that particular politician and sending them, questions that way? Is it just well-organized content?
Mostly because when you're going that format, you only get one person with the dialogue. You only get to talk to that one candidate. And maybe that one candidate has a good idea, but maybe his opposition has a great idea. But if he's not invited to the conversation, or if it's someone like Facebook where the other guy can just delete his comments, it's not really a fair playing field where you don't actually have a dialogue. You have a conversation between two people, but you don't really there's no debate. There's no people coming in with outside ideas, because we want to encourage people to disagree. Because
I personally love watching debates between candidates and people of different parties, because that's how I have learned about politics in the past, is let's bring up a really controversial issue and where does everyone stand on it and why.
And all my most productive conversations have been with people who disagreed with me. In fact, most of these ideas I have about things like the Internet Party came from arguing with anarchists online. They hate the government. They hate everything about it. They don't care about your good idea. They just hate it and they want to tear it down.
Right.
And there's actually value in that, because every time I come up with an idea, it doesn't matter if it's a good idea. They're going to find a problem with it.
Yeah.
And when they find a problem with it, I have to find a way to fix that problem.
Right.
So it encourages critical thinking.
Exactly.
Yes, and innovation. We need to have more conversations with anarchists. That's what it comes down to.
Well, just people who disagree with you, really.
Opposing views.
Because that's what I believe democracy is about. It's about disagreeing effectively. People are not going to all agree about a subject, but you have to be able to work towards the important goals anyway.
Yeah. Sure. Now, here's another question. I think I remember during your presentation at Startup Weekend that part of the motivation for this was to try to engage the digital tech-savvy generation a little more in the political process and in political dialogue, because it seems like young people these days are not really caring too much about what's going on when it comes to politics. They're kind of waiting till they get into their 40s or whatever before they're ready to jump into some of these issues. So is there something kind of built into the way that your platform is set up or the way that you're going to market it that can draw in some of that crowd?
I think by making it content-oriented, we're really going to appeal with, I say our, as in like a younger demographic, because if you look at things that folks our age, like in our 20s or late teens, are doing, people are showing up to rallies and they're saying, I care about animal rights, I care about the environment, I care about X, Y, and Z issue.
Right.
And so by making it issue specific, you can then search who's in line with my views. And so I can vote for said candidate, and that will be who I go to the polls to vote for, because they really care about, where.
Right. It's because the younger generation, it's not that they're apathetic. It's not that they don't care. They actually care a lot. They're very active online. They're very, very vocal, but they're being very vocal in traditional social networks to their friends, and they have no connection to the actual political process.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to do, is bridge the gap between the armchair activist who, posts about all of the injustices of the world, but doesn't actually go to vote to change them. And we want to give them an avenue where they can still do their armchair activism, but actually translate that to real world action. And that's the important thing, is so that they know who's actually on their side. So they can actually go and see that, hey, maybe that guy for that party, maybe I don't like his party, but that particular guy, he's in line with my thinking. And they don't know that if they don't have a channel to see that. And so we want to create that, where it's very easy to start with what you're interested in and get connected to the person who's actually doing that.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so if I wanted to get involved in this or check it out, do I have to wait for an election to come up, or is there some place I can go right now and kind of get a taste of what the platform looks like and how it's
there
used?
is a landing page at theinternetparty.ca, but it's not really ready for public use yet. We're using the October municipal election as kind of the proving grounds for the initial MVP product.
Okay.
We're hopefully going to be on U of Waterloo campus, I should say, and like canvassing around town and approaching folks to go ahead and sign up and use it.
Okay.
Yeah, our official launch won't be until probably sometime after the October election, just because we're going to focus specifically on what the voter support network needs for the upcoming election and use it as a place to actually get real politicians and real people involved, and then kind of scale it up from there to something where people use it year round. So instead of having an election season every 4 years where the candidates come out to engage and then they go back to, Parliament for the next 3.5 years and don't talk to you, this is something where, the incumbents it would behoove them to engage with their populace so that when election season does come, they already know, I stand up for your rights, I'm doing what you want. Or the challengers to say, hey, I don't have to wait for election season to kind of challenge your support base. I can chip away at your support base while you're busy not talking to them.
Right.
And so when election season comes up, everyone's going to love me and they're not going to know who you are.
Right.
So
And other places, I didn't answer your question fully. We are on Twitter under our parent company with the handle We the Internet, which is actually just James's business, but Internet Party is going to be a non-for-profit subsidiary pretty much off of that.
Yeah.
So you can get updates through the Twitter handle at We the Internet. And also on Facebook, we have The Internet Party, and we also have We the Internet on Facebook. Not to be confused with just Internet Party, which is in New Zealand.
which is a real political party started by, I believe, the founder of Mega Download.
Okay.
Yeah, he wound up deciding to start the Internet Party, and it's a real online, digital, partisan, political platform.
Is Mega Download the one that got shut down in
Yes.
the U.S.? Or
Yes.
maybe that was Mega Upload.
Oh, no, yeah,
Mega
it was
something.
Mega Upload. Whatever it was, that guy started
that
his
guy.
own political party. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a few places that people can go to kind of see what you guys are doing, which is great. What we should clarify, too, when we talk about the municipal election in October, we're specifically talking about Kitchener or Waterloo or...
I believe it's Waterloo.
We're covered with Waterloo. We might try to talk to whoever's doing the Kitchener side of it, but apparently it sounds like they aren't nearly as active. So if someone listening is actually engaged in the political process for Kitchener area, please drop us a line.
talk to us.
At We the Internet. That would be great if you could drop us a message there, because we'd love to
Yes.
give you some free software.
There you go. Awesome. I was hoping you guys could get a plug in there somewhere.
We're on
that's
G+,
perfect.
Facebook, and Twitter.
Yes.
Perfect. And the hope is that post-October election, this will grow to a platform that's used in the much wider political process all
Yep.
over the place.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
entirely translatable. So if there are other countries, say, Estonia or Russia or somewhere that...
U.S.
Yeah, anywhere at all. We want to make digital democracy accessible to everybody. So
Right.
anyone who's interested in it, it's going to be an open source project, free for everybody to use. So drop us a line and help out if you can. If not, make sure to vote Internet Party in 2020 when it's a real political group.
There you go. Something to look forward to in 6 years. All right. Well, we're just about at the 1 hour mark here, guys. So I think we'll wrap up. I love talking to you guys. I think, it's great to have, once again, a couple, and even if you weren't a couple, to have two such intelligent, insightful individuals as guests on our podcast. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank
for
you
having
for
us.
the lovely
No.
compliment.
Yeah, hey, no problem. It's all part of the job, all part of the service we offer here. I should mention that next week we have another male-female duo lined up. They're not husband and wife, but
Yet.
yeah, potential. I don't know if
What
we
have
can
I
speak. We'll ask. Maybe we'll ask them about that on the podcast. But Lindsay and Taylor, who are both one is the director and one's the producer, I believe, of Startup Community, which is a documentary made about the startup scene here in Kitchener-Waterloo. So they're going to be on with us next week. We want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on another episode of TSP Weekly, and thank once again the Center for Entrepreneurship for allowing us to use their equipment and their comfy chairs to record our podcast. Please feel free to send us your comments, your questions, your criticism, your feedback. You can reach us by email at feedback@tspweekly.com. Also, please remember to follow us on Twitter at TSP Weekly, and our website is tspweekly.com. I think we also have techstartuppodcast.com. It just redirects to the other site, so feel free to go to either place. So, from myself, Darren Conley, my co-host, Stephen Campbell, and our guests, Cecillie and James, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you all next week.